Hey guys, how are you? Rod Kaiser from the Refinishing Studio Learning Center and the Restoration Studio LLC. Today what we're going to do is we're going to work on this cedar chest. And what we did is we re-veneered the entire cedar chest except for the top. And in these tutorials what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this and show you all the techniques we used re-veneering this piece. Now we were able to use a lot of different processes here, so it's pretty cool. What we did was we re-veneered the front using a satin wood. Okay, so this is some of the raw veneer that we used right here on the front. Okay, now on the satin wood I wasn't able to get paper backed veneer, so I had to get veneer backed. Okay, so this is veneer backed, and we're going to show you how to glue this on. I go ahead and I glue this on with hide glue, a cold press hide glue, so it's pretty easy for you to get. You don't need a glue pot or anything. So I'm going to show you that whole technique and how we did this in the front. I'm going to show you all the steps for doing that. So this is the piece that's done. It's all refinished, ready to go back to the client. Actually, it goes tomorrow. So let's get into this tutorial and show you. I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this one. Okay, we're going to cut our veneer here, and the satin wood that I'm going to put on the front, I need them squares in a perfect size. Now, when I cut veneer here in the shop, I'm typically doing small pieces. You know, we do restoration and you know, we don't have, you know, all the tools that a woodworking shop would have. So something that I found years ago that I really like to cut small pieces of veneer is a paper cutter. And I took the blade off and I sharpened the blade. And it does a really nice job cutting because, you know, it has, you know, your paper cutter has a nice grid on it and a perfect straight edge. So as long as you're just cutting small pieces, I find it to be absolutely perfect. You know, there's a lot of ways you can go about it, and I'm sure you search around, you can find all different types of methods, and I'm sure you'll find more professional methods than a paper cutter. But hey, you know, it is kind of paper backed, some of it, so it falls within the category, right? So I went ahead and marked my veneer where I want to cut it, and what I need to do is I need to make sure I have perfectly straight edges. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do it on here. And what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to make my two ends perfectly square. I'm just cutting off just a little bit. All right, and then what I want to do is I have my top marked here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use my straight edge right here that I have created. Actually, let me make sure that's perfect. Okay. Now, when I rough cut my veneer, I always make sure that I oversize it so that I've got enough play to be able to trim it. Okay, now since this piece is a little long, I'm going to have to cut it twice. So I'm just going to flip it around. Okay, I'm going to make sure it's straight against my back straight edge there. And then down here, there's a metal cutting edge. And I want to make sure I'm perfectly flush right with that edge, and I'm perfectly flush up here at the top. And I should get a perfect cut. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The bottom I'm not going to worry about because that's going to be overhang off the edge, and then when I'm done I'm going to file that off and sand that. So that's sort of just a quick way to cut paper backed and veneer backed veneer. You can cut raw veneer this way too, but raw veneer tends to be pretty brittle. So I don't usually use the paper cutter for that. So there you go. Let's go ahead and do this veneering. So as you see, what I did here is I squared out my line here where I'm going to apply my veneer. I put a pencil line down there and then I taped it out. And the reason I taped it out is just because I don't want to get glue on the other surfaces. Well, how I'm going to do this is I'm only going to glue this piece. I'm going to let this set up and then I'll do the other one. I could do them at the same time, but for video purposes and stuff, it's just a little bit quicker and easier to do it this way. The glue I'm going to be using is cold press hide glue. Okay, it's Type-On genuine hide glue, they call it. What do they say here? It's not called cold pressed on here, but this is what we've always referred to as cold press. Hide glue is typically a glue that you heat up and apply warm and hot. This is cold hide glue. It works right out of the tube. It has an expiration date on it, and that expiration date's really important. So if you purchase this, make sure you look at that expiration date, because this glue does go bad. It has a shelf life. Okay, now the reason that I'm going to use hide glue, and I'm going to go ahead and start applying it here. The reason that I'm going to use hide glue is because this is a paper backed. I'm not veneer backed, I should say. I'm not going to use contact cement. I want to use wood glue. All right. Well, the nice thing about hide glue is it's got a really high tack to it, so it kind of grabs quick. You have time, so you can manipulate it and move it around. If I were to do this part here, since I'm doing multiple pieces, and I have a pattern going on, if I were to use contact cement, it would grab instantly, and I wouldn't be able to shift it around and move it. It just wouldn't be kind of dangerous to do it in this application. So I like the ability to be able to adjust my veneer and move it around and place it exactly where I want it. Now, you could do that with, with regular wood glue. But as I've mentioned in previous videos, I don't have a veneer press. So I'm going to use clamps. And the nice thing about hide glue is that if I make a mistake, and inevitably mistakes happen when you don't do something all the time. If I make a mistake, I'm going to be able to come back. If I get a bubble or a place that doesn't clamp down properly, I'm going to be able to come back with a iron. And hide glue is activated by heat. So I'm going to be able to go over it with a little bit of heat. And I use my veneer hammer. You can use a block. I'll be able to go over it with an iron and then rub it back down. Basically what that does is that softens up the glue. And by softening up the glue, you can flatten your surface out if you have a bubble in there. And then as soon as it cools off, the bubble should be fixed. All right, now when I put my veneer in place here, I have it perfectly laid down in place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of wax paper, okay, just standard wax paper, all right, from the grocery store. Once I have my veneer exactly where I want it, perfectly placed, I'll put this wax paper on top, okay. Then what we need is a board, okay, and gently lay this down. You don't want to move your veneer. Okay, so we'll lay that down, and then what we're going to do is we're going to clamp it in place. All right, now I'm going to show you a little trick here I picked up a long time ago in the shop because I might not do a lot of veneering, but I do a lot of clamping up. And clamping is one of those tricks with furniture that it's almost like an art form unto itself. Clamping some things is just nuts. To try and figure out how to clamp it properly, especially chairs and things. So I learned a long time ago this little method that I kind of taught myself. Pressure in hard to reach places. Sometimes we get veneer bubbles and stuff in the middle of the dining room table, and there's no way to clamp it up effectively. So I'm going to have a spot that I'm going to have a little hard time with right here. Because my clamp isn't going to reach across there. And I could come up with ways of doing it, but I have this method that I use. And what it is I use a bottle jack, okay? So I'll place a bottle jack right here where I need a pressure. And then I'm going to take a 2x4 and I put another 2x4 on top of it. Okay, now what this does is you need this extra surface area on the ceiling. So if you... I'll do is we'll put this in place. You want to make sure when you do this method that you have that extra board in the top, because that covers a larger surface area and it won't damage your ceiling. You also want to make sure that you do it on a joist. You want to be on a stud, because if you're not on a stud, you might pop through the drywall. Okay, I happen to know that I'm on a stud right here. And then all we're going to do is just apply pressure with the bottle jack. You don't do so much pressure that you like, you know, bust something. Just until it gets tight. You know, and you feel like you're applying just, you know, ample pressure just to push our veneer down tight. Okay, so if you hear like a little bit of cracking, maybe back off a little bit of pressure. Just saying. Okay, so there you have that. We'll let that sit up for a while, and that'll take care of the first part, and then we'll move on and we'll do the exact same process on the lower half.